Elon Musk had built empires from dreams, a pioneer whose restless energy fueled revolutionary rockets, electric cars, and technologies that seemed ripped from the pages of science fiction. But on that fateful day, he found himself not on a launch pad or in a sleek boardroom, but in the hushed, tension-filled confines of a courtroom that was as heavy with history as it was with anticipation. Now, as the gavel clattered against the polished wood, a murmur rippled through the crowded gallery. The courtroom, suffused with an air of foreboding seriousness, was packed with reporters, spectators, and those whose livelihoods were tethered to the success of Musk's ventures. It was a day that would test not only the strength of his technological dreams, but also the very fabric of legal systems that many felt were relics of a bygone era. The opening scene was almost cinematic. Cameras flashed like distant stars against a backdrop of worn wood panels, and every whispered conversation carried the weight of uncertainty. Among the onlookers was Sophia, a young engineer whose eyes betrayed a lifetime of sacrifices and dreams, pinned on the promise of innovation. Clutching a faded photo of her two smiling children, she hoped that the verdict in this case would mean security, not just for her family, but for thousands of hard-working souls who depended on the forward march of progress. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was electrified with tension. The prosecutor, a sharply dressed man in a tailored suit, exuded a confidence that bordered on theatricality. With each measured step toward the jury, his polished shoes seemed to echo the certainty of his convictions. He began with a controlled cadence. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we are not here merely to discuss technology or to weigh profits against principles. We are here to examine whether one man, whose name is synonymous with innovation, has placed himself above the very laws that bind our society." His words cut through the murmurs like a knife, and as he referenced mountains of documents that purported to prove Musk's disregard for established regulations, an undercurrent of unease gripped the courtroom. The documents, thick and ominous, were painted as a testament to negligence, evidence of a man who, in his quest to redefine the future, had allegedly trampled over the rules meant to protect the present. But then there was the judge, an imposing figure whose eyes seemed to see beyond the pages of law into the heart of the matter. With a slight smirk and a raised eyebrow, he quipped, "Mr. Musk, I trust you understand the meaning of accountability, or shall we look it up together?" The remark drew a ripple of laughter from the gallery, a momentary release of tension that belied the gravity of the proceedings. For many, it was a reminder that this was no ordinary courtroom battle. It was a clash of titanic forces between the old order and the new age of technology. In the midst of this charged atmosphere, Elon Musk sat with an unsettling calm. His eyes, dark and reflective, surveyed the room as if he were observing the mechanics of a complex machine rather than a courtroom. Elbows resting on the polished table, he exuded a quiet confidence that was almost disarming. No smirks, no flashy gestures, just a measured silence that spoke of countless nights spent wrestling with both failures and triumph. The prosecutor's voice rose again, now laced with frustration and urgency. "Mr. Musk, you claim to be a visionary, yet today you are being held accountable for actions that endanger the livelihood of thousands. Can you explain how you dare to defy the very rules that are designed to protect our society?" Before Musk could reply, his eyes drifted momentarily to the young engineer in the back. Sophia's face was etched with worry, a mirror of the fears and uncertainties of the many who believed that her future, and that of her family, was inextricably linked to the outcome of this trial. Moments before entering the courtroom, she had approached Musk with trembling hands, her voice barely above a whisper as she pleaded for hope. "Mr. Musk, if this goes wrong, if we lose this case, my children, I don't know how I'll pay rent next month." In that fleeting moment, the gravity of the situation was underscored not by legal jargon, but by the raw human emotion of someone whose life was caught in the crossfire of progress and tradition. The judge's gaze, both amused and stern, turned to Musk with a challenge. "Mr. Musk, do you intend to speak, or shall I assume that your silence is your final statement?" His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. It was as if the entire room had paused, a collective breath held in anticipation of what was to come. Every eye was fixed on Musk, waiting for the spark that would ignite the next phase of this high-stakes drama. Elon Musk, ever the master of timing, glanced at his watch, not out of impatience, but in a deliberate pause to let the moment settle. With a measured clarity, he finally rose. The soft scrape of his chair was the only sound for a heartbeat as all eyes converged on him. His voice, when it emerged, was calm, deliberate, and filled with an undercurrent of profound resolve. "When you're launching rockets, every second counts. I merely wanted to give everyone here time to think." A murmur of confusion and curiosity ran through the courtroom. The judge's eyes narrowed, a hint of a challenge in his gaze. "Mr. Musk, your time is limited. Please proceed." The stage was set. In that charged silence, Musk's words were not just a defense, they were a statement of intent. In his measured tone, he promised that the ensuing narrative would reveal not a tale of recklessness, but a challenge to an outdated system that no longer served its people. What happened next was a master class in defiant calm. As tension rippled through the room, Elon Musk allowed a small, knowing smile to play on his lips. A smile that was not one of arrogance, but of absolute control. The courtroom, previously rife with expectations of a dramatic showdown, now found itself in a state of rapt attention. Every gesture, every pause, was loaded with significance. The prosecutor, his confidence wavering slightly, tried once more to corner Musk. "This case is not about technological marvels or visionary ideas. It is about adherence to the law. Can you explain how you justify your actions?" His voice, once booming with authority, now carried a note of desperation, as if he were grasping for something that might restore his earlier dominance. Musk's gaze, steady and unwavering, swept across the room before settling on the judge. "I am not here to flaunt my successes or to claim superiority. I am here because I believe that the laws we cling to are relics of a past era. A time when the pace of innovation was measured by the ticking of a clock rather than the speed of progress." His words resonated with a quiet intensity, a challenge to the very foundation of the legal system that sought to constrain the forward march of technology. The courtroom transformed into a battleground not of personal vindication, but of a larger philosophical debate. Musk's argument was simple yet profound. If the laws are too archaic to govern the modern world, then they should evolve or be rewritten. It was a call to reconsider the balance between tradition and progress, a balance that, in this moment, seemed precariously tipped. As the proceedings unfolded, Musk reached for a thick document on the defense table, the very document that the prosecution had relied upon to paint him as a rogue innovator. Holding it aloft for all to see, he began to deconstruct the prosecution's case. "This document," he declared, "is supposed to be the evidence of my transgressions. But what if I told you that it's based on regulations that were written in an era long past, when the world was a very different place?" He flipped the document to reveal a highlighted section. Section 423, a clause that was meant to serve as the cornerstone of the prosecution's argument. Section 423 clearly states that if emerging technology is not specifically covered under existing regulations, then no legal action should be taken until new standards are established. It is the law of unintended consequences, a law that acknowledges the inevitability of progress. His voice was firm, leaving no room for ambiguity. Innovation should not be shackled by rules that were designed for an earlier age. A ripple of astonishment coursed through the courtroom. The prosecutor, caught off guard by this revelation, stuttered through his response, trying to salvage his case. "But this clause is not applicable. There are inconsistencies in the document," he protested, flipping through his own stack of papers with increasing agitation. Elon Musk's calm response was measured and incisive. "Inconsistencies? Or perhaps it is that you built an argument on a foundation that no longer holds up to scrutiny. The laws we abide by must serve the people, not the interests of a select few who cling to power through outdated rules." His words echoed in the silent chamber, striking a chord with those who had long felt stifled by bureaucratic inertia. Amid the legal sparring, the human element of the story shone through. Sophia, the young engineer, sat quietly in the back of the courtroom. Her eyes, shining with unshed tears, were fixed on Musk. In that moment, her personal struggles, the sleepless nights, the relentless efforts to keep her family afloat, became emblematic of every worker whose future depended on the daring leaps of innovation. For her, this case was not an abstract legal battle. It was a fight for the promise of a better tomorrow. As Musk spoke of progress and the need for change, his words resonated with the crowd. Whispers of agreement spread like wildfire. "He's talking about our future," someone murmured from the gallery. "About all of us who are left behind when the old system refuses to move forward." His rhetoric transcended the confines of the courtroom. It was a rallying cry for those who dared to dream beyond the status quo. The courtroom had transformed into a theater of ideas, a battleground where tradition and progress collided with unprecedented intensity. The prosecutor, now visibly shaken, tried to rally his remaining arguments. "Mr. Musk, your words are inspirational, but they do not excuse the fact that you have consistently ignored established regulations. Innovation without accountability is a dangerous precedent," he argued, his tone a mixture of desperation and indignation. Musk's response was as calm as it was cutting. "Accountability is not a license for complacency. If we continue to enforce rules that were written in an age of horse-drawn carriages, we risk stifling the very progress that propels us forward. I do not seek to evade responsibility, but to challenge the very framework that has become a barrier to the future." His eyes swept over the courtroom, meeting the gaze of every juror, every reporter, every person who had placed their hope in the promise of change. The judge, who had been silently observing the unfolding drama, interjected with a measured tone. "Mr. Musk, are you suggesting that the law is inherently flawed, that it must evolve to meet the demands of modern society?" His question was not merely rhetorical. It was an invitation to redefine the relationship between law and progress. "Precisely," Musk replied, his voice resonating with conviction. "Consider a world where we still regulate the speed of cars by comparing them to horses, or where we judge the potential of the internet by telegraph standards. Innovation is not something that can be contained by rules written for a past era. It is the engine of our future, and it must be allowed to run free." His words were met with a mixture of awe and introspection. The courtroom had become a microcosm of a larger debate, one that pitted the rigidity of established systems against the dynamic force of progress. As the tension reached its peak, the prosecutor, desperate to salvage his case, produced a new folder of documents, evidence he claimed would decisively prove Musk's defiance of the law. With a dramatic flourish, he slammed the folder onto the table. "Your Honor, this is irrefutable evidence of Mr. Musk's blatant disregard for compliance," he announced, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. Musk, unfazed, carefully opened the folder and skimmed its contents. A brief, quiet laugh escaped him, one that was not of mockery but of disbelief. "This report," he said, holding up a single document for all to see, "was written 2 weeks after the lawsuit was filed. If it were as critical as you claim, why was it not presented sooner?" The courtroom fell silent. The prosecutor's face drained of color as he struggled to respond. His argument, once so forceful, now seemed hollow in the face of Musk's relentless logic. "Desperation," Musk murmured softly, "is not a legal strategy." His words, simple yet profound, cut through the tension like a scalpel. For a moment, the very foundation of the prosecution's case quivered. The judge's previously smirking expression gave way to one of genuine contemplation. Papers that once symbolized condemnation were now mere evidence of a misaligned system, a system that had lost sight of its true purpose, to serve the people. In the midst of this legal melee, the judge found himself in a rare moment of introspection. His earlier amusement had been replaced by a sober recognition of the larger implications at play. "Miss," he said slowly, "when I entered this courtroom, I believed I was dealing with a man who thought himself above the law, a man whose arrogance was as boundless as his ambitions. But today, I see that what we have before us is not merely a question of defiance, but a fundamental challenge to a system that may no longer serve the common good." His words, delivered with a calm authority, sent ripples through the room. For many, this was the turning point, a moment when the fight was no longer about one man's legal acumen, but about the need for the law itself to evolve. Sophia, sitting in the back, felt a weight lift from her shoulders. In her eyes, the courtroom had become a stage not only for litigation, but for the possibility of a better, more responsive future. Musk's voice softened then, as he addressed the court with a personal appeal. "I understand the concerns about accountability," he said, his tone gentle yet unwavering, "but consider the human cost of clinging to outdated rules. Every regulation that fails to adapt is a missed opportunity, a missed chance to uplift those who are working tirelessly to build a better life for themselves and their families." The prosecutor, though still seething, could not counter the sheer humanity of Musk's argument. His earlier bravado had crumbled in the wake of the compelling narrative of progress, responsibility, and hope. The judge, too, found his own beliefs challenged. "Justice must be fair, relevant, and above all, forward-thinking," he stated, his eyes meeting Musk's with a newfound respect. "We cannot allow fear of the unknown to stifle the progress that promises to shape our future." As the proceedings continued, the courtroom became a theater of transformation. No longer was it merely a battleground for legal technicalities, it had evolved into a forum for discussing the very essence of progress. Musk, now at ease, wove together a tapestry of logic and passion, drawing on anecdotes from his own tumultuous journey. He spoke of failed rocket launches that taught him the value of perseverance, of sleepless nights spent grappling with challenges that others deemed insurmountable. He recounted moments when the entire world had doubted the possibility of electric vehicles, only to be proven wrong by the sheer force of innovation. Every word was meticulously chosen, every pause laden with meaning. He addressed the court not as a defendant fighting against an unjust charge, but as a visionary challenging the rigidity of an outdated legal framework. "I have always believed that innovation is not an end in itself, but a continuous journey. A journey that requires us to question, to experiment, and sometimes to break the mold in order to build something better." His voice, steady and resolute, resonated deeply with those present. The prosecutor's arguments, once so forceful, were now eclipsed by the broader debate on progress. In the face of Musk's unwavering conviction, his claims of legal transgressions began to seem like relics of a system unwilling to accept change. Are we to let outdated regulations hinder the advancements that can transform our society? Musk asked, his question hanging in the air like a challenge to conventional wisdom. The judge listened, his face reflecting both the weight of the law and the possibility of evolution. The courtroom, once filled with tension and antagonism, had given way to an atmosphere of cautious optimism. It was as if the very essence of justice was being re-examined, where legal responsibility was balanced against the promise of progress and the betterment of society. In a dramatic crescendo, the courtroom witnessed a dramatic shift in momentum. The prosecutor, having exhausted his arsenal of arguments, now stood as a figure diminished by his own rigidity. His once confident stance had given way to an almost desperate clinging to documents and precedents that no longer resonated with the modern spirit of innovation. His every gesture was met with a quiet murmur of dissent from the gallery, a collective acknowledgement that perhaps the world had outgrown the constraints of laws that failed to evolve. It was in this moment of vulnerability that Musk delivered his final, decisive argument. With a deliberate step toward the jury, he spoke not only to their intellect but also to their hearts. Today, we are not merely debating regulations or compliance, he declared. We are, in essence, debating the future of our society. We must ask ourselves, should our legal system serve as a straitjacket, limiting the boundless potential of human creativity, or should it be a dynamic force that adapts and evolves as we do? The silence that followed was profound. Every ear was attuned to his words. Sophia's eyes glistened with renewed hope as she clutched the photograph of her children. For her and countless others, this was more than a courtroom drama. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a declaration that progress and innovation were worth fighting for, even when the odds seemed stacked against them. In a moment that would be etched into the annals of legal history, the judge finally spoke. His voice, measured and imbued with the weight of the decision he was about to render, filled the chamber. Mr. Musk, when I assumed this case, I believed I was addressing a man who had acted with arrogance and disregard for the law. But I now see that this case is far more complex than a simple battle of wills. It is a confrontation between the static nature of our legal system and the dynamic force of human progress. He paused, allowing the courtroom to absorb his words. The law is meant to serve the people, to provide order and fairness. Yet when the laws become outdated, when they fail to keep pace with the advancements of our time, they risk stifling the very progress they were designed to protect. I have spent many years upholding these rules, but I must also acknowledge that justice must evolve if it is to remain relevant. There was a collective intake of breath. The judge's words resonated deeply, not just with Musk's supporters, but with every individual present who had ever felt the sting of outdated systems. In that moment, the courtroom transformed from a place of judgment into a crucible for rethinking the relationship between law and progress. Musk, still calm and resolute, responded with a quiet dignity. Your Honor, I stand before you not as someone who seeks to escape accountability, but as someone who challenges the idea that the past should dictate the future. Innovation requires risk, and sometimes that risk means questioning the very rules we once held as sacrosanct. The judge nodded slowly, his earlier skepticism softening into thoughtful consideration. Indeed, Mr. Musk, today I am not only weighing the facts before me, but also the implications for every person who dares to dream of a better future. In the spirit of justice and fairness, I find no grounds to proceed with this case against you. His final words, delivered with measured calm, reverberated through the room like the closing notes of a symphony. As the judge pronounced his verdict, the courtroom erupted in a cascade of emotions. The sound of the gavel's final strike was like the breaking of a dam. Relief, jubilation, and hope all mingling in a powerful release. For Sophia and the thousands of workers whose livelihoods depended on Musk's innovations, the verdict was a lifeline. It was an affirmation that progress, though fraught with challenges, could prevail when challenged by the courage to question the status quo. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment, and the flashes of cameras lit up the courtroom like a constellation of hope. "Innovation wins," one headline read, while another proclaimed, "Elon Musk's legal brilliance, a challenge to outdated systems." For Musk himself, the victory was not a personal triumph, but a symbolic moment in a broader struggle, a struggle that pitted the forward march of technology against the inertia of tradition. In the midst of the celebration, Musk's eyes briefly met Sophia's. In that silent exchange, there was a recognition that transcended legal victory, a shared understanding of the sacrifices made and the risks taken in pursuit of progress. Sophia's tear-streaked face transformed into one of quiet determination, a reminder that every small victory was a step toward a better future. Musk, ever the visionary, turned to face the throng of reporters waiting outside. With his signature sunglasses and a calm, confident smile, he addressed the cameras. "Today was never about winning or losing," he said. "It was about ensuring that our laws, our systems, evolve with us. The real victory is the knowledge that progress can continue without being shackled by outdated rules. We must keep questioning, keep innovating, and never allow fear to dictate the future." As the courtroom emptied and the crowds began to disperse, the echoes of the day's events lingered like a soft refrain. The judge, now alone in his chambers, sat at his desk, lost in thought. He reflected on the evolution of law and its role in society. A system that had long been built on tradition but now faced the inevitable challenge of modernity. His mind wandered back to the moment when Musk's words had cut through the rigid defenses of the old order. And he wondered if perhaps it was time for a change. A time to rewrite the rules so that they reflected not the past, but the promise of the future. Meanwhile, Sophia made her way home under a sky that now seemed brighter, as if the day's events had cast a new light on the possibilities ahead. She held her children close, whispering words of hope and promise that had been kindled in the courtroom that day. For her and countless others, the verdict was a reminder that sometimes, even in the face of daunting challenges, the courage to question and to push forward could reshape the world. In the days that followed, the story of that courtroom battle spread like wildfire, a testament to the power of standing up for progress. Headlines and social media buzzed with debates about outdated laws, the balance between regulation and innovation, and the enduring legacy of a man who dared to challenge the system. The narrative was no longer confined to legal textbooks. It had become a symbol of hope for those who believed that the future should be crafted not by the limitations of yesterday, but by the limitless possibilities of tomorrow. The legal battle had ended, but its ripple effects continued to shape the discourse on innovation and regulation. Conferences, think tanks, and community gatherings were held, each echoing the sentiment that change was not only necessary, but inevitable. Legal scholars, once staunch defenders of the status quo, began re-examining old precedents in light of the case. Debates raged in academic halls and government offices alike. Should laws be amended to keep pace with the rapid evolution of technology? How could regulators create a framework that balanced accountability with the freedom to innovate? In one such forum, a renowned legal scholar referenced the case as a turning point in modern jurisprudence. What we witnessed in that courtroom was not merely a legal defense, it was a philosophical awakening, he said, his voice resonating with conviction. It challenged us to think about the purpose of law, to protect, to serve, and to adapt. If we cling too tightly to the past, we risk losing sight of the future. Musk's victory had sparked a broader conversation, a challenge to all who believed that progress should be stifled by archaic rules. And as debates turned to legislative proposals and regulatory reforms, the spirit of that day lived on in every argument, every policy meeting, and every bold step toward a more dynamic future. For Elon Musk, the courtroom was but one chapter in a long and winding journey. He knew that the battle was not over, that each victory, no matter how significant, was merely a stepping stone toward a larger goal. His vision of the future was not confined to the corridors of power or the confines of a courtroom. It was a call to action, a reminder that progress demanded both courage and a willingness to embrace the unknown. In private moments, away from the public eye, Musk often reflected on the price of innovation. The sleepless nights, the endless risks, and the sacrifices made by countless individuals were all part of a larger tapestry. A tapestry woven from dreams, determination, and the unyielding belief that the future could be better than the past. And in those quiet moments, he vowed that he would continue to fight for a world where progress was not hindered by outdated notions of accountability, but celebrated as the engine of human potential. Years later, when future generations looked back upon this courtroom drama, it would be remembered not simply as a legal battle, but as a defining moment in the struggle between tradition and progress. Historians would write of a day when a visionary challenged the very fabric of the legal system, a day when the spirit of innovation triumphed over inertia, and the call for a new era was heard loud and clear. Sophia, now older and a mentor to many aspiring engineers, would recount the day with pride, a day that symbolized hope, resilience, and the belief that one person's courage could indeed change the world. For her, the victory was more than a legal exoneration. It was a promise that the future was in the hands of those brave enough to challenge the limits of what was known. As the narrative of that day continued to inspire people around the globe, a broader invitation emerged, a call to question, to innovate, and to never allow fear to dictate the boundaries of what was possible. The story of Elon Musk's courtroom challenge became a rallying cry for all those who dared to dream, a reminder that the greatest innovations were not only in technology, but in the very way we thought about progress, responsibility, and the role of law in a rapidly changing world. It was a lesson for every individual facing the daunting challenges of a modern society. When the rules of yesterday no longer serve the needs of today, it is our duty to push forward, to ask difficult questions, and to create a future that reflects our highest aspiration. The courtroom drama was not just a battle over regulations, it was a testament to the human spirit, a story of courage in the face of overwhelming odds, and a reminder that progress, however challenging, is always worth fighting for. The legacy of that day endures as a beacon of inspiration, a reminder that every challenge, every setback, is an opportunity to reshape our world. Elon Musk's calm defiance in the face of outdated laws, his unwavering commitment to innovation, and his ability to transform a legal battle into a broader dialogue about progress continue to inspire people everywhere. His words echo far beyond the courtroom, urging us to question, to innovate, and to never lose sight of the future. And so, as we close this long and detailed narrative, we are left with a question that reverberates through the ages. What if every sleepless night, every risk taken in the name of progress was not just about individual success, but about the collective promise of a better tomorrow? What if the courage to challenge outdated systems was the very spark that ignited a new era of possibility? The story of that courtroom battle, of a man who smiled in the face of legal adversity and dared to ask the hard questions, reminds us that innovation is not just a technological feat, it is a human endeavor. It is about hope, resilience, and the belief that no matter how heavy the weight of the world may seem, the power to change it lies within each of us. In the end, as the echoes of that historic day continue to inspire debates in boardrooms, legal forums, and the hearts of everyday people, we are invited to stand tall in the face of challenges, to question the status quo, and to embrace a future defined not by the limitations of the past, but by the limitless potential of human creativity.